Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora and welcome to another Manawanui live stream. My name is Simon and today we have another live session ready to take your questions and any topics you'd like me to discuss and cover over the next 30 minutes. Today we don't have a guest and there isn't much of a lineup of updates to share, so there's plenty of time for us to go through questions, answer anything that you want to know from Manawanui or from the sector if you think we may be able to help. There is plenty of time to go through things live on this live stream. There were some questions posted in the comments of our pre-live stream post on Facebook. So I will just cover off those questions before we get to anything live, but please pop a question in the comments. It's super simple and you can get an answer almost straight away. So people on the Facebook post were asking questions around our weekly newsletter and when was the last time they received one. So a while back we made the decision to remove the commitment from sending out the newsletter every week, and the reason being there wasn't enough new information or updates coming through to make it worthwhile. And what we didn't want to do was make the newsletter something that can happen every single week but doesn't have really important information or updates included in it. So we wanted to make sure that every time you see a email update come from Manawanui into your inbox, we want you to know that there is important information in there that we are communicating to all of you, because what we don't want is for people to stop reading it, assuming that there is nothing but, just information shared from other sources or things that aren't of really key importance. So yeah, newsletters, they don't go out every week, and I did on the last week's live stream promise to send out the latest newsletter that failed to send back in October, but I didn't. I'm sorry, but I was hosting the South Auckland Network meeting on Thursday and had Friday off, and just unfortunately didn't schedule that newsletter to go out on the Friday. And that is also the same reason why if you had your timesheets or expense claims due for submission this Monday that's just gone, you wouldn't have received the email reminder. So hopefully you were on top of things and managed to submit on time without the email reminder. But yes, I normally send that out on the Thursday morning, but I was in South Auckland hosting a network meeting and I was unable to trigger that process in time before the Thursday morning cutoff. So my apologies there, and I won't let that happen again. So the only thing that was in the newsletter that didn't go out that is important for everybody to know is around the changes to how we manage the situation where somebody doesn't have the amount of funding required to cover their last expense claim or the last amount of timesheets for that funding period. So imagine it's your final fortnight period, and you only have $2,000 worth of funding left, but your last expense claim is $2,000, $2,500. So in that scenario, the timesheet or expense claim will get submitted, and potentially what will happen is the next funding allocation you have will cover the difference, that extra $500. Now, part of the work we've been doing with DSS and our NASC organizations is that we need to work on getting a lot more firm around funding only being used to cover the costs for the period it relates to. So what that means is if you use up all of your funding before you're due to renew, you may not be able to use your next funding allocation to cover the difference. So that's not going to change immediately, but sometime in the near future, you will see that when you go to submit in the portal, it won't give you the option to submit a timesheet or expense claim that's going to use up more funding than you have available. And that will go to the team to review. And in some situations, we may still process it, but what we're trying to do is really stress to you all that DSS, or Disability Support Services, and the NASCs really need people with individualised funding to stay within their funding amount they've been allocated, and make sure that only costs that are incurred within a funding period are covered from that funding. So that's the update that was missed in the last newsletter, and that will go out in the next version. I have a question from Susie. She says, what age do carers need to be allowed to be a caregiver with and without supervision? So it's the same rules really as it is for babysitting. I can't remember exactly the age that you need to be to legally babysit. I think it's 14 years of age. I do believe it's the same in support work. If somebody is below the age of 16, then there is no requirement to pay them the legal adult minimum wage, but you can still choose to pay them higher. But if somebody is younger than 16, excuse me, there is a special youth minimum wage that is the lowest you can pay somebody. But as long as you meet the legal requirements to work in New Zealand, which is, you're a citizen or you have the right visa, I do believe it's the same requirements as babysitting somebody. To have somebody in your supervision alone, you need to be at least 14. So hopefully that helps. But there's, lots of situations, Susie, where a younger sibling is the paid caregiver for a disabled sibling. We see that quite a lot come through. So if you want to talk to the team about setting that up, I would encourage you just to get on the phone to our CEC team, and they can walk you through that and make sure that that scenario is possible in your case. Now, I will just remind you all that this live stream doesn't have a specific topic. So if you've got a question or you want me to talk about something, then please pop it in ASAP, because once we stop talking through questions, then we will sign off early for the evening. So please jump in, don't be shy. Susie says, thanks. It comes up often in our group. Not sure what group that is, but happy to provide some certainty. There is, the only age requirement is that you are of the legal age to supervise somebody independently, which is, the same thing as babysitting. And I believe, without checking it up, I do believe that age is 14, unless it's changed. So I've just had a quick Google. So you got to make sure you take that with a grain of salt. So it looks like a person needs to be at least 14 to legally work as a babysitter. And that would be the same in this case for support work. So all good there. Terry says, how long can one person go on holiday with pay? A bit of a tough question to answer. There's a really big "it depends" involved, but basically what I would do is check the employment agreement that the support worker has and see if there is anything around annual leave, providing notice when taking annual leave. But the sort of guiding principle is if you have the amount of annual leave saved up, then you could in theory take it all in one go. But the thing is, with annual leave, it is up to the discretion of your employer to whether they authorize that annual leave or not. Now, if they are unreasonable in declining the annual leave request, then there are some issues that can arise around discrimination, and the employment court could get involved if you really wanted it to be sorted. But in this scenario with individualized funding, it's really about taking a common sense approach and both parties being reasonable. And I think that would be the best outcome. If you are an employee with a large amount of leave balance, the best thing you can do is give your boss a lot of notice, a lot of time in advance before that leave is scheduled to happen. That way they can have the time to prepare for the cover. They might be able to hire somebody for a casual contract if you're going on a really long leave break. And that might take some time to put in place. So yeah, I would just try and work with the other person as best you can. Terry says, if he has to go to Auckland and help his mum, but not sure how long he will be there as she's very sick. Well, if it's to do with caring for an immediate family member, that person could also use sick leave. But also, they can only use the amount of sick leave that they have stored and owed to them. And then they could also use annual leave once that sick leave runs out. But if you wanted to be certain that you're making the right decision around approving a reasonably long break from their role, whatever form of leave it is, call the EMA. You've got access to their 0800 number as you're a customer of Manawanui. Explain the situation to them over the phone, and they will be able to give you a really clear answer around what to do. Karen, she says, hi, I've noticed that payroll seem to be requesting me to send new images of invoices saying the original is blurry when they're actually crystal clear from my view. Only a recent issue. Not sure if others have experienced the same. I do know the only known instance of an invoice being blurry on our end is if it is uploaded as an image through the mobile app. Unfortunately, the way the mobile app was designed, it degrades the quality of the image. And so when it is opened on a larger screen, like on a computer screen, compared to on your mobile phone, it's very blurry and hard to read. So my recommendation to ensure that invoices are crystal clear in the portal is, if you're using a mobile phone, go into your web browser, whether that's Safari or Google, and access the portal through your web browser. It is reasonably easy to navigate. It looks just like the web portal on your computer. It looks different to the app. But when you do that, if you're uploading an invoice, you can attach the actual files. So if you've got the PDF saved on your phone, you can attach the PDF as it is and not have to take a screenshot of it and upload it as an image. That would be my advice, to try and limit the amount of times you need to re-email or upload an invoice or receipt. Because on your phone, on the app, it may be easy to look, may be able to read it fine, but when we open it on our computer screens, it's much blurrier because it's stretched out. And if we were to shrink it to try and read it, it then becomes impossible to read because it's too small. Excuse me. Sandra, Christmas bonus payment. Is there an amount that is reasonable? Carers are so deserving of one. I couldn't agree more. Your support workers do a fantastic job for you. They, often do above and beyond what is required of their job, and you want to acknowledge that. That is why, at the moment, it is completely fine for you to put through a bonus on one of their timesheets close to Christmas. You put it through as an expense type. I believe there is an expense type called bonus. You don't need to put through an invoice or anything for it. But what we do is we say that it could not be more than a week's worth of wages. So figure out how much they earn for a week's amount of work, and that would be the most amount of money that you could put through as a bonus. You also need to make sure that your funding can afford that, because it will come with additional costs, to make sure that you can budget for that bonus. And also just be mindful that when you're putting through a bonus, if you put through, say, for example, $500, they're not actually going to get $500 extra in their bank account, because that bonus is still taxable income. In years gone by, we have allowed for people to purchase like a Prezi card or a grocery voucher for their staff as a gift. Currently, we will not support that because we are waiting for DSS to give us clear guidance on whether this is okay. A bonus we know is okay, but we're still waiting to get confirmation from the ministry that gifts for employees are permissible. And before we have that assurance, we will not recommend anybody purchasing gift or gift cards for their employees. Karen says, that makes sense. Read the photos. Thanks. No worries, Karen. Happy to help. Leslie says, can you please confirm, Simon, that travel between cities or NZ regions is still not allowed under the current purchasing rules? So yeah, unfortunately, local travel is the only travel that is permitted. And the current interpretation of that is your actual region. So the region that is linked to your NASC, whether that be Northland, Auckland, Waikato, Canterbury, Wellington, those are regions. But for somebody who lives, say, in the very south of Auckland, right next to the border between Auckland and Waikato, their local pools or leisure centre might be closer in the Waikato region. There is the allowance for somebody to travel a reasonable distance over a border, over a regional boundary line, to access a disability service that they would be able to reach if they were to travel in the other direction within their region. So it doesn't, basically there's a grey area to allow people who are right on a borderline to make the reasonable and cost-effective choice rather than forcing them to drive further away to somewhere that's within region. So hopefully that helps. As we all know, April 1st, those rules will be gone. At this stage, it doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a restriction on national travel. They did make a comment that overseas travel will still need approval from a host. But as I've said many times, we're still waiting on a lot of the detail from DSS around changes coming early next year, and we will share them as soon as we get them. Anna says, bonus can be used for permanent and contractors staff too. No, you cannot pay a bonus to a contractor because they are an independent contractor and not an employee. That would not be a reasonable cost to give to a contractor because they are self-employed, and you pay them per hour. You would not pay a contractor their bonus. That doesn't make sense because they're their own boss, they're their own employee, they manage it, and a bonus is what you'd pay from an employer to an employee. So please only put through a bonus for permanent or part-time employees, or casual employees as well. But it might be a bit difficult to work out what is the appropriate amount considering they are casual and might work very different hours, but only employees. And it says, thank you for the advice. You're welcome. Just making sure I haven't missed anything come through. I guess the other thing is, just be mindful that tomorrow is Guy Fawkes. So if you have people in your house with additional sensory needs, you may want to just have a plan in place to deal with some of the extra noise and stimulation that might go on in your community. It might, it's very different across the country. Some communities really get into the spirit and others don't really participate much, but it'd be good to just have those noise cancelling headphones on hand, a device and other sensory items to help with preoccupying and distracting them from what might be going on around them. Just be mindful of that. And if you are somebody who likes to enjoy the Guy Fawkes occasion, please also just be mindful of your neighbors and in your community with children with additional needs, and also those with animals, especially if you live somewhere semi-rural. There's a larger potential impact for those animals to cause themselves harm. All right, I can't see any new questions come through. So if anything comes through after I'm gone, I will just reply to those as a comment. Massive thank you again to everybody who tunes in, asks questions and engages with me. It does make this afternoon a lot more enjoyable than just here rambling away by myself. So thank you for asking your questions. They're all very helpful. And of course, it's really good to remember that if you've got a question, I can guarantee there's somebody out there who wants to know the answer to that, who has thought of it or might not have thought of it, would love to know. So yeah, please, I can only encourage you to ask as many questions as you have on these live stream sessions. They're here to value you. If you want me to interview somebody for your benefit on the live stream, please put their names in the comments. If you want to hear from somebody in the ministry, government, different organizations, whether it's Autism NZ or cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, or maybe you want to hear from someone at your NASC, I am completely without shame in asking people to join me on a live stream. So if you want me to have somebody here for a kōrero, for a conversation, just pop their name in the comments or message our Facebook page privately, and I will 100% invite them on. But with that said, I am going to bid you farewell for this afternoon. So thank you again for tuning in. I will see you here same time next week, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Ka kite.